Dzień dobry Państwu.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Jest mi niezmiernie miło
It is my immense pleasure
na naszym spotkaniu Dni Studyjnych EKR-u panią premier Włoch, Giorgię Meloni.
Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy.
I pana premiera Rzeczypospolitej Polskiej Mateusza
And the
Morawieckiego.
Prime Minister of Poland, Mr. Mateusz Morawiecki.
Jak Państwo widzicie, nastroje
you
są
can
dobre,
see,
bojowe.
The mood
To pewnie
is
dlatego,
very,
że
very
będziemy
positive
rozmawiać o
and
przyszłości
we are ready for combat. And this is because what we are going to discuss is the future of Europe. This is the most pertinent topic for the next weeks and months. A lot of things are at stake, a lot of important events are coming. Those of you who are part of ECR are the forces of reason. And the European Union does need reason, as in Europe this is what we have a deficit of.
Zrobimy
A lot
i tym z tym większym zainteresowaniem będziemy
depends on
słuchać
what we
słów
are able to
pani
do and
premier i pana
achieve.
premiera. Nikola,
We
proszę
will
się
listen
teraz
with
uprzejmie.
utmost attention to what both
Thank
Prime
you,
Ministers have to
Professor
say.
Luko.
Nicola, the floor is
I
yours.
would like to welcome the Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki and the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Thank you for your presence at our study days, during which the ECR group is discussing important international issues directly affecting our nations, also in the light of the many geopolitical changes taking place. We, European conservatives and reformists, have a clear vision for the future of the European Union. We want to take Europe back to its original idea, a union of peoples and nations that does few things together, but does them in an important and effective manner, respecting the principle of subsidiarity to the full. To achieve this goal, we have worked hard in the European Parliament on concrete issues and proposals to improve the lives of our citizens. And on this ground, our continuous political action is finding great feedback. We will continue this work in the months leading up to the next European elections. Our main goal is to build a future majority in the European Parliament as an alternative to the current one, hopefully increasing the weight of conservative governments in the European Council as well. In the last national, regional and local elections, conservative parties achieved excellent results in many EU states, and other important elections awaits us in the coming months, starting with Spain and Poland. We are only at the beginning of a great change, a conservative revolution, and we are ready for it. I thank again both Prime Minister for being here, and I give the floor to Ms. Giorgia Meloni.
Well, thank you very much to everyone. Thank you to Mateusz Morawiecki for our bilateral meeting this morning, for the beautiful place that we have been in together. And thank you to our co-chairman of the group, Professor Legutko and Nicola Procaccini. And then I will pass to my mother tongue. Voglio ovviamente ringraziarvi, ci tenevo molto ad essere qui, ci tenevo a che avessimo un momento per stare insieme, per confrontarci, perché sono stati mesi chiaramente molto complessi, i miei, i nostri, in questa nuova difficile avventura che stiamo affrontando. Però voglio dire che mai ho sentito venir meno il sostegno della famiglia dei conservatori e riformisti, cioè del nostro ECR Group, E questo per me è molto molto importante. Lo dico da presidente del partito, approfittando anche per ringraziare della fiducia che mi è stata accordata la scorsa settimana, qualche giorno fa, nel rinnovare il mio incarico di presidente. Lo dico anche per salutare e ringraziare i miei preziosi vicepresidenti Radoslav Fogiel e Giorgia Buxadè, il nostro infaticabile segretario generale Antonio Giordano e tutte le persone che hanno continuato a lavorare quotidianamente per rafforzare la nostra famiglia. E lo dico da primo ministro, ovviamente, del governo italiano, lo dico perché sono consapevole di come la vittoria di Fratelli d'Italia in Italia abbia rappresentato un messaggio di forza e di speranza per la famiglia dei conservatori. Di forza perché oggi siamo 3 primi ministri conservatori nel Consiglio europeo che tendono, diciamo, a portare avanti comunemente la nostra visione del mondo, e di speranza perché chiaramente quando governi una nazione puoi dimostrare con i fatti quanto sia falsa la narrazione che un certo mainstream ha fatto sui conservatori. Noi uscivamo in Italia da una campagna elettorale nella quale si raccontava che se Fratelli d'Italia avesse guidato il governo sarebbe accaduto di tutto.
Then all sorts of terrible things would have happened. Terrible things would have happened to the economy. Italy would be entirely isolated. That there'd be a complete breakdown of the welfare system. That across the board there would be all sorts of terrible things. Those were the predictions. 8 months on, objectively speaking, we can say Italy is internationally respected, Italy defends its national interests, yes, but what the figures show is that our growth is better than France's or Germany's, that we've reached a record, a historic record in terms of employment levels with stable contracts. We have a record low for unemployment. And so what we're seeing is that the country is in safe hands with this government. And we're dispelling that false narrative. And what I also hope is that there'll be a broader message coming across about the Fratelli d'Italia. They wrote us off right from the start. They said they'll never get into power. They said they'll never cross that line of having what is necessary to get into power. And we proved them wrong. We didn't have all the powerful connections, but we were determined, we were realistic, and there are all these starry-eyed idealists on the left, but we were clear-eyed realists. We look at the problems as they really are. We look at the world as it really is rather than the world as we would like it to be. And so we now have a responsibility and an opportunity. We have the European elections ahead of us. And it's not going to be an easy year. There are going to be other events along the way, which will be vital during that year. One of those appointments with history is in Poland. National elections are vital, and we very much want BIS and Mateusz and our Conservative friends to be able to stay in power. That's vital not only to us as a political family, but it's vital for Europe, what they have shown in their government, what Poland has demonstrated now, particularly in the context of the Russian aggression in Ukraine, is vital to the EU. The EU should be saying thank you to Poland for what Poland has done over the last few months, but what they've achieved in such a short time with refugees too. That's tangible achievements. Poland deserves way more credit for all of that work. And then, before the Polish elections, there are elections in Spain. That's going to be an interesting challenge for Vox. Their election campaign is ringing a few bells with me. It reminds me of what we were doing. There's some of the same phrasing there, the same messaging to citizens. But we know that if you manage to consolidate the position, as Vox has succeeded in doing at regional level and with a lot of agreements, coalitions, then it will be very interesting to observe how things go. I look at a lot of analysis, what the pundits say about European elections and so on. The main aim that we should never lose sight of is strengthening our family. There are many other people who will be swept along with us by the strength of our ideas. They'll want to work with us, come closer to us. There are many parties who can be closer to us in terms of our vision of Europe and what we want to do. But first, we need to strengthen our own family. Whatever happens, the Conservatives will be in a crucial position following the forthcoming European elections. And that's the prize that I'm keeping my sights firmly fixed on, because the people of Europe cannot wait any longer. They need a pragmatic approach. They need a conservative approach. They need to turn the current way of doing things on its head. And we held a bilateral meeting. I held a bilateral meeting with Mateusz Morawiecki, and it's not just about Ukraine or EU competitiveness, migratory flows. It's a historic moment when the EU has to be open about its mistakes. The way the EU did things wrong, this kind of lawless globalization, exposing the continent to a form of dependency that was unsustainable. A few years back, some people said, watch out, we need strategic autonomy. And if you said that kind of thing, they'd write you off as an extremist, as a nationalist. You'd be written off completely as being on the lunatic fringe. Well, now everyone's recognizing that that is common sense. I mean, we started with coal and steel. It was a coal and steel community. That is a national strategy for self-sufficiency, if you like. It's about energy. And now we're talking about the supply chain, and we're talking about sustainability and autonomy, and they didn't do their homework on that. They lost sight of the main issues for Europe. And so there's a lot of work which needs to be done now to return to our historical pattern. I mean, look at the Green Deal and the transition. We're conservatives. We defend the land of our parents, that link between the dead, those of us who are here now, and those who are as yet unborn. That link is at the heart of what we believe in as conservatives. And of course, we want to defend the environment, but we have to see the environment as it is containing humans, not humans as some sort of parasite on the environment. We have to have that bigger conception of the environment and of our territory as inhabited by us. And some have been brave enough to say we need to free ourselves of dependency on Russia. And it doesn't make any sense to replace dependency on Russia with dependency on China. We need to open our eyes, and in the Council of Ministers, Mateusz, but also in the Parliament, there are many people now who'd started off with that agenda and are now starting to rethink their position and come a lot closer to our position. People are casting the scales off their eyes. They're seeing reality as it is. So we should continue with that task. So there's this kind of deep ideological green cause trying to speed things up. And things may change in the next year or so. We have our job in the meantime. We need to be clear about the prognosis. We need to say, look, this will destroy competitiveness in the EU, and it won't even do much to protect the environment. So that's where we need to be very careful. We need to take a quite different approach, a realistic, pragmatic approach, an approach which defends our business, workers, industry, and competitiveness. If you're talking about strategic autonomy, you need to talk about the new form of economic governance. We're seeing parties from different countries, net surplus, indebted countries, Northern European, Southern European countries. There's this historic dichotomy between hawks and doves, and what we need to do is say, look, are we throwing good money after bad? What's worthwhile investment? What's strategic investment? Worthwhile investment? Let's go for that. Let's choose a path, a strategy. For instance, defence, strategic autonomy involves defence too. If we're going to strengthen our defence capacity, we need to look at the investment in the new Stability and Growth Pact. We need to move towards growth, because if we don't have growth, we won't have stability. Migration is another consequence of the Ukraine conflict. There's ultimately a knock-on effect. There, in terms of the consequences, what we're seeing in Italy too is a consequence of the Ukraine conflict. Mateusz and myself and other conservatives need to maintain our position. There's some technical problems with the sound. The interpreters apologise. If we have illegal immigration into the EU, then we do not have a satisfactory strategic solution. What we need to do is stop migratory flows before they reach the territory of the EU. And then everyone will agree on that. That is the main task we have ahead of us. So, point one. Of course I understand Mateusz's position and the position of others at the Council of Ministers table, defending national interests. I'm the President of the Council of Ministers of Italy. There are different countries with different priorities and different strategic visions. And of course we have to understand that there can be different positions, but we need a clear strategy. And it is true that things are changing now. The fact that we're talking about the external dimension, we're talking about a dialogue with North African countries. We should have a new form of cooperation with North Africa. Not a predatory approach, but a strategic approach. We've actually gone backwards in terms of our presence in Africa and North Africa in recent years, and others have rushed in to that vacuum, and they don't have the same interest in stability in Africa as we do. But things are changing, and we will go on to fight together. If they think they can divide us, they don't know us well enough. I appreciate and admire the way in which Mateusz has defended his national interests, and I try to do the same thing, so I hope it's reciprocal. On this and 1,000 other things, we have to work together. So to conclude, enlargement of the EU and the new rules of procedure and operation for the EU. We need to take a pragmatic approach, a lucid approach. And our starting point is not a set of different interests, our starting point is our choice. On the Western Balkans, for instance, I wouldn't talk about enlargement, but reunification. The EU isn't a club where we say you can come in, you can't. History decides who is European and who is not European. And if we start moving towards a unification, yes, there are issues about governance and how we run things in the EU, but that's secondary. The main issue is what are our priorities? How many of us are there? And what are our priorities? And the more of us there are, the less we can get involved in micromanagement of the details of people's lives, and the more we can look at big strategic choices, which is something we haven't always done well. The principle of subsidiarity has not been adequately applied. What can be better done in Rome should not be done in Brussels, it should be done in Rome. Security, external borders, single market, foreign policy, citizens, everyday lives. All of that is the prerogative of the nation states, and that is the conservative approach, and that is the way I will take that vision forward. So these are the battles that we will be waging together in the EU Council of Ministers, together in the European Parliament, and we will be rallying our forces together for the European elections next year. And we believe we will be sweeping more and more people along together with us.
Quando il nuovo governo italiano si è insediato, quando
when we took office in Italy, and we were
per chiedere la fiducia al Parlamento,
calling for Parliament to place its trust in us, that was the 22nd of October, and I remembered John Paul II, the Polish Pope, a great statesman, a great man. It was my honor to meet him personally, and I have very deep admiration for him. And I remember something that he said. He said, freedom isn't doing whatever you feel like. Freedom is having the right to do what one should. We've always been free. And that is the reason why we will do what must be done, which is to act in the interests of the soul and identity of our continent. Thank you very much for your attention.
Bardzo dziękuję.
Well, thank you very much.
You can share. Bardzo dziękuję pani.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Prime Minister. Thank you very much for this beautiful quote from John Paul II. These are very wise words, and thank you for defending the principle of reason, of being realistic. This is the foundation for our political family, for the parties that form this political family. Without these principles, Europe will be in greater trouble still. And this is the strategy that we have adopted and we intend to continue. So thank you very much. And I shall now pass the microphone to Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. Thank you very much, and thank you so much for the invitation. I will speak about reason and about realistic approach, but let me start by making reference to another value, something that has been mentioned by Giorgia when she spoke about our achievements. It is a feeling of pride. We are proud of what we have achieved, and we are very proud of what government of Giorgia Meloni has achieved in Italy during the 8 months in office. And what you have heard when you were competing in the elections is something we were hearing 8 years ago. Poland was to become new Venezuela. We were to suffer from inflation, economic crisis, and now very distinguished economists, those who do not like to admit that they were ever wrong, say that we have the lowest unemployment ever, and our economic growth is very, very sound. And we can only compare ourselves to those countries that went through the same problems. So what we can compare is the fourth quarter before the pandemic to the second quarter of this year. So after the pandemic, after the war, we find ourselves in a situation which is very positive. However, we had to suffer a number of very unpredictable crises. But this may be a premonition of positive things to come. Accumulation of these negative events may lead to a situation that could be very concerning. So we should pull our forces together. Those leaders who have a similar view about the future and who share similar values of identity, culture, faith. And this is something that is very dear to our group, the European Conservatives and Reformists. Based on these common values, we can inspire new forces in Europe to join us and to act. And Fratelli d'Italia is a very good example here. Their electoral victory, the electoral victory of Giorgia Meloni is such a positive sign. And I know that some other conservative forces in Europe are gaining momentum. And our political competitors, left-wing parties, the progressive media try to shame us, saying that, oh, you have behaved in a way that is different from what the mainstream in Europe is doing. But we can say, well, aren't you ashamed of the fact that 10 years ago, the minimum wage in Poland was €1 per hour, when retired persons were not able to buy medication that had been prescribed, when 2 million Poles had to leave their country in order to work abroad, where people were working in very precarious conditions without long-term contracts. And we demonstrated that country can be governed differently. And what we can achieve is wages that make it possible for people to live life in dignity. And we know that the first 8 years in office were aimed at trying to equalize the situation, to make us comparable with other countries, to create a level playing field. And the next 4 years is the time for us to go further, to promote values and to promote a vision based on realistic approach, based on reason for the future of Europe. So this is what we want to achieve, and we do hope that next year's elections to the European Parliament will be elections during which we shall promote security on external borders of the European Union, and this can be ascertained only when, on one hand, we have strong armies, and this is what we are doing in Poland. We are investing a lot. We have a very big defense budget. We are planning to spend between 3 and 4% of GDP on our defense. We spoke about cooperation with Italy when it comes to the defense sector with Giorgia Meloni during our bilateral talks. So we are doing a lot in order to increase our safety, our security. Strengthening our external borders is just a part of the response we need to give to the current challenges. The second part is strengthening our transatlantic ties, and I am so very happy that Giorgia Meloni is an ally we can count on when it comes to building strong relations between the US and Canada on one hand and Europe on the other hand. What would have happened to Ukraine if not for the United States and Canada? And I believe that this is not a very risky statement if we say that if not for the United States and Poland and their position at the beginning of the war, we would be in a very different situation with the Russian army being right on the border of Poland. This makes us realize that transatlantic alliance is a fundamental value and that the North Atlantic Treaty Organization is a very important element of our security. So external security is one very important element of our future, but it's not all. Poland spoke very strongly during the Council meeting last week. We wanted for everyone to hear that we want to decide about what is taking place in our country. We want to be able to govern our territory, so no one can tell us what should happen in Poland, not the European Commission and no one else. There are some people who would like to see some disagreement, conflict between Poland and Italy, but we will not allow for this to happen. We want to focus on what brings us together, and we say we speak with one voice when we say that external borders of European Union need to be secured. The position of Italy on the Pact on Migration and Asylum reflects the interest of Italy. However, we say that the Pact on Migration and Asylum is not in the best interest of Poland right now. This is why we did not want to agree for this to be part of the conclusions of last week's European Council. We do not want this to be used as a vehicle to force Poland to accept illegal migrants. We did not want to accept a situation in which we might be forced to accept the mechanism of relocation. We also associate this with safety and security in Polish cities, in parks, on the streets. If you walk down Polish streets after dark, you can feel completely safe. And there are some other countries in the wealthy West where you cannot feel safe. Poland is one of the safest countries in the world. If you look at any ranking list, you will see that 96% of Polish people say that they feel safe and secure in their neighborhood. I'd be quite interested to see results of similar polls in some North European countries. So this is the reason why we've decided to organize a referendum. We will ask Polish citizens about their opinion about the relocation mechanism. This referendum will probably take place on the same day that the parliamentary elections elections will be organized. So we will ask Polish people whether they agree with the position of some opposition parties, such as Platforma Obywatelska. They are proposing for Poland to accept the illegal migration. So the choice will be rather simple for Polish citizens. They will have their say. Giorgia Meloni said something that we find very interesting. What we want to achieve is a situation where we strike the right balance between what is local and what is global. We want to create a situation in which Europe develops and individual countries develop. We want Europe not to fall into dependency from any of our strategic rivals, China, for example. There are countries that are becoming stronger and stronger, and they are a challenge to the free and democratic world. The transatlantic alliance, after the pandemic, after the energy crisis, we are in a very particular situation. Thus, I fully agree with what Prime Minister Meloni said. We cannot fall from one dependency from Russia, into another dependency, becoming dependent on China. So we have to make sure that we do not repeat the mistakes of policies of some countries which made it possible for Putin to implement his plans of attacking Ukraine. He was no longer depending on the transit of natural gas through Ukraine, because Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 were already there. So gas could flow into Europe through the gas pipes that were established thanks to an agreement between Gerhard Schroeder and Putin. This duplicity can no longer be accepted, so we have to strike the right balance between making Europe competitive on the global market while remaining independent of those regimes which are not always very friendly, which may be an understatement. So this is one of the principles that we found our policy on. Another thing that was mentioned by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is the very hot topic of whether we should move towards the qualified majority when it comes to decisions taken by the European Union. Poland is very clearly in favor of not changing the treaties. We want nation states to be stronger. We want the European Union to be a community of nation states. We do not want Europe to be an organism that is pursuing some ideological projects that may become very dangerous. We want to base our development on the tradition of ancient Greece, ancient Rome, the Christianity. Our culture, our civilization is the basis on which we want to build the future. And we do want for the principle of subsidiarity to be fully respected. Whenever we have something that can be done better at the level of a nation state, there is no point for it to be moved to a level of the European Union. From the level of Brussels, you are not able to have the right picture of what is happening in Rzeszów, in Suwałki, in Koszalin, in Ancona, in Lombardia, or in any other beautiful regions of Italy. This is not possible. Centralized state does not work. We've seen it in the Soviet Union. We know this is a road leading to nowhere. Centralized economy is not the right way to go. So we shall defend the principle of subsidiarity, and we will make sure that it is applied in all the fields. Also in the future. I would also like to conclude by saying that it is my strong belief that this conservative wave will become even greater. The government of law and justice, the government of peace was the first of many, hopefully. Giorgia Meloni and Fratelli d'Italia were another milestone in this change. Yes, I like to use the term milestones on the path to the victory of other conservative parties that respect tradition while having a very good offer for the future. So let us hope that the forthcoming elections will show us that there will be conservative governments in countries number 3, 4 and 5. So Italy, Spain and Poland shall be governed by conservative forces that respect tradition, that have a very realistic approach. And those forces that were able to prove, as it has been in Poland, in Italy, that we are fully capable of managing the economy, that we are fully capable of promoting entrepreneurship, that we can stimulate development of Europe, following in the footsteps of our fathers who were so successful post World War II. So I would like to wish for us and for every conservative party in Europe to be victorious in the upcoming elections. Thank you.
Dziękuję bardzo, panie premierze. Chciałem zwrócić uwagę na
thank you, Prime Minister.
które są, jak wydaje mi się, szczególnie
I would like to draw your attention to two issues that were raised in your speeches. The first one was also addressed by Prime Minister Meloni. It is a great pleasure to meet with representatives of parties and government that are efficient. These are parties and these are successful parties and successful governments.
Reprezentują środowiska ludzi, którzy
They represent interests
są dobrymi gospodarzami, są
of
skuteczni.
people who are
Wielka wartość.
good governors,
Nie muszę
who
przekonywać.
are efficient, and, well, I do not have to convince you about it, naturally.
Dodamy jeszcze naszych przyjaciół od ODS, współrządzących partię, prawda, w Republice
Add to that our friends from the Czech Republic,
Hiszpanii,
our friends from Spain,
niezwykle aktywnie działają na rzecz
who have been
no to rzeczywiście
conducting a very active campaign in the run-up to the Spanish elections, then I think that we can be optimistic about our future success.
również, czy może przede wszystkim na
I
zasadzie
believe that
suwerenności.
our
To znaczy, że
success
my
is
jesteśmy
based on the
gospodarzami.
respect of the sovereignty principle.
I
This
zerwanie
principle
rozwiązań
means that we
między suwerennością
are those who are in charge in our countries.
skutki i
If we
sukcesem, który jest zerwany,
abolish the sovereignty principle,
jest bardzo niebezpieczne, bo musimy bronić suwerenności, bo też bronimy
this may lead to very dangerous developments. We need to defend our sovereignty because by the same token we are defending our responsibility for what is happening.
jakiejś polityki unijnej.
We're all aware that a failure of a given European policy
Którzy decyzje podejmują, prawda, komisarzy, Komisji Europejskiej.
actually does not give grounds to political responsibility to, for instance, European commissioners. However, us as politicians who are active on the national political scene are held accountable for our actions. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank both prime ministers for their presence, for their contribution. Basically, what we've heard from them shows that we are on the right track to achieving our goals. The results of the elections in Spain, and then in Poland later this year, and then in the European elections in 2024 is for us a source of optimism. However, we know that success doesn't just happen, that one needs to work for it. I know that it may seem banal, but I felt I had to address it. I have a sense that if a politician adopts a language of success, then this means that he is disconnecting, let's say, from reality and is no longer on his toes. On the finishing note, I would like to say that I'm hopeful and optimistic about our future, and I believe that the success of our parties will translate into a success of the European Union, and our failures hopefully not as well.
Of our colleagues, let me greet the Italian Minister for European Affairs, Raffaele Fitto. Welcome back, Raffaele.
Pleasure of meeting Mr. Fitto some time ago, yes. Okay, so Giorgia, Prime Minister, thank you very much. Please remain seated for a couple of minutes, a short break, and I'll be right back. Thank you.